Today's podcast features Parker McCullum as our guest. And of course, Parker has a great story. We dive into the beginning to how he got to the stage at Rodeo Houston, selling out Red Rocks. We talk about his new album and his producer, John Randall, all the people he writes with, some up and coming stuff, and who was his babysitter when he was young. Stick around, you don't want to miss it.
Go.
Parker, I'm so excited to have you. And I have a story to share with you. You played Matagorda County Fair. I don't even know if you remember this. It was about 2019. Tracy Bird opened for you, but you had some profound. I love how you have your shows and you kind of chit chat with the audience a little bit. But you shared a story about coming to our area just a few years before that show and how there was like maybe a handful of people at the venue. And you shared the story how you played your heart out, you played your full set, and then look at you a couple of years later selling out our whole rodeo arena and then all the things that you've done since then. And let's talk about how you went from our little rodeo arena to Rodeo Houston. Being from Conroe, that's a huge thing.
Yes, ma'am, it is a big thing. I always try to say this without sounding like I'm bragging, but I think it's so impressive for someone like me, where I was when I was 19 years old, to have had any kind of success. I mean, I felt like I was the least promising prospect when I was, just graduating high school, kind of first getting off onto my own and figured out what I wanted to do in the world, which I knew what I wanted to do. I wasn't entirely sure of what I was capable of doing or what I would actually go on to do. Pretty naive at that age, and still kind of that way even so now. But I do remember playing that fair. And I remember, I think the one that I was referring to, I could have been wrong. But there were in like Port Arthur, somewhere around there during Mardi Gras, we played. Golly, I can't remember the actual name of it, but there was, when I say there was nobody there, I mean, I think we played for our bass player's cousin in a 15,000 person area. I don't even know what you would call it. I guess it was an arena. But I don't know. I mean, I think it's, a lot of people have had success in the music business and a lot of people haven't. And the fact that I'm one of the ones that have is still to this day mind blowing to me.
What were some of the moments like from going from those smaller venues and then on this stage at Rodeo Houston and then selling out Red Rocks and all this stuff that you're doing, the big stadium tours that you have going on? When was that moment that like just turned everything around where all of a sudden things just started growing and blowing up?
To be 100% honest, Miss Helen, I really don't know. I've never felt any different. I've never woken up any day and thought, "Oh, now we're doing it."
Mhm.
When I started, I told my dad, when I really started hustling and grinding, with goals written down and legitimate direction. I just I promised myself, I promised my dad, I was like, look, I'm going to do this come hell or high water, whether there's 5 people out there or 50,000 people, for as long as I can. This is what I do. This is who I am. And I bought into that. And that was a full conviction when I was 20, 21, 22 years old. I was thinking that, and I was telling that to myself every night when we were playing for nobody. And there's no, there's never been a wow, I made it moment. I've never felt that. I think standing on stage, or right before we went on stage at the Houston Rodeo, our first year playing it, I kind of looked out there and I was like, this is crazy. I almost get tears in my eyes talking about it right now because I wanted it so bad. But it's I don't know. I never felt any different. I never had an aha moment or anything like that. I just, always, I still say it to this day. I say head down, grind up, and we'll still trying to make it. So I think, never losing that mindset. As soon as you get comfortable, and I've been guilty of it. I felt like I got kind of comfortable on my last album, and I wasn't as focused and as detailed as I had been in the past, and it was kind of a good little wake up call, and I've really gotten back to kind of thinking that way again. But I don't know. There was, I'm just grateful to still do it every night. I get to go up there and do it.
Well, just so you know, you had a lot of cheerleaders. Like all of us were so excited when, because we, being from the Houston area, knowing what that stage means and that arena, like seriously, a lot of cheerleaders. And I have a good friend of mine who actually went to school with your parents in Conroe, and she was just like crazy. Like everybody was trying to get their tickets to go see Parker because we were so proud of you. And then the horse moment, that had to be like huge for you riding the horse, like your hero, George Strait.
Yeah, that was cool. Yes, ma'am. It was. I'd kind of wondered, about doing it, and I guess not everybody does it. Um, uh, I spent a lot of days on a horse when I was a kid growing up, and a lot of days, and just very comfortable. Always have been, was just raised that way, and that was the first time in my life I'd ever really been nervous on a horse. Even the day, just during the day, they kind of, they you can't bring your horse or anything like that up there. You gotta ride one of their show horses, and that's used to all the smoke and the lights and everything, which makes sense. But
Hmm.
they let you kind of, they give you about 20-30 minutes on them, during the day after sound check, just to kind of, there's cables across the rodeo arena for the stage. I don't need to run over them, so you kind of get your boundaries where you can go and where you can't. And thank God that they give you that, because I mean that's the most nerve wracking. I've been throwing off horses, I've been throwing off all kinds of stuff, but never in front of 72,000 people, in NRG Stadium. So that was pretty special. That was probably, I would probably never be more nervous than that on a horse for the rest of my life.
We were so proud for you. So you have your current album is out, and John Randall, you work closely with him, and he's your producer. Tell me about your relationship with John.
JR's the man. I mean,
Mhm.
easily one of the most talented human beings in Nashville, Tennessee, any day of the week. He just came down here to Texas, took him, and the Warren brothers came down with him out to our ranch west of here, and we holed up there for 3 days and writing songs. And he's just, I don't know, I can't say enough about him. He's got a way, he's a Texas boy, so
Mhm.
he kind of gets, when I came to town, Randy Rogers was the one who kind of pushed me to go to Nashville and sign a record deal, and told me that's what I needed to do, and that's why I did it. And just I thank him every day for putting me in contact with John Randall, because I don't think anybody else would have been able to appreciate what the one thing that I do well, which is write the kind of songs that I write. And John really embraced that and leaned into it. He didn't try to change anything. He didn't try to get me to, put snap tracks over it or rap or anything like that. He's a phenomenal singer, phenomenal guitar player, phenomenal songwriter. And I think he was just the perfect fit for me, from going from Texas to Nashville, and kind of staying real and staying raw, and still doing my thing just on a bigger scale. And I've cut 2 full albums on Universal Records with John, and I'm going back in the studio in about a month. I've got about 20 songs I've written that I want to cut for this next album. And I was kind of sitting there, I thought about, calling Tony Brown, who's produced a bunch of straight records, played with Elvis, produced huge records. Thought about, Frank Liddell, who lives in Houston. Thought about calling him as a producer, and the more I thought about it, I couldn't imagine not doing one more record with John Randall. I think we've done so much good stuff, but there's something we haven't tapped into yet that him and I are supposed to tap into. I truly feel that and believe that, and I think this next record will be that.
That's exciting because I'm the songwriter person. Like when I get new music in, I got to see who wrote it. And you have people like Brett James and of course Randy and Wade and Lori McKenna. I mean, like really heavy songwriters. And I would just love to be a fly on the wall during some of those songwriting sessions.
Yeah, I just had. I mean, I had to go through the trenches in Nashville of writing. I had never co-written before with anybody but my brother, and
Mhm.
uh, and so when I got to Nashville, and Randy had pushed me to go up there and just write songs, just to kind of get a different perspective and learn some things. I was writing with, some pretty goofy rooms, writing goofy songs, and that's just, I just never been. I don't have any problem with people doing it. It's just not for me. I don't enjoy it, and it doesn't do anything for me. But I really earned. I feel like, you know, the opportunities to write with Lori McKenna and Liz Rose and Hillary Lindsey and Tony Lane and Brett James and all these Hall of Famers. And I mean, last week, the Love Junkies, that's what Hillary Lindsey and Liz Rose and Lori McKenna call themselves. They all three flew down to Texas and stayed at my house. My wife went to Oklahoma to see her parents. And it was me and the Love Junkies at my house for 3 days, 2 days. And we just sat in my living room. I think we left to eat lunch and left to eat dinner. And other than that, we sat in my living room and they just sit there. And Lori's the best at it. You know, she's like, she was one of the first people in Nashville that would allow me to just basically just freestyle over a melody and just sing and rhyme and rhyme and rhyme and just sing just random until something cool comes out. And then, all right, let's chase that. We wrote this song called Big Ol' Empty House. And I was just riffing on this melody that I'd been had for a little while. And all of a sudden I sang, this big old empty house is eating me alive. And she was like, bam. And we're sitting in my big old house. My wife's gone, it's empty. It just kind of wrote itself. And, you know, it took a long time. I'm serious when I say I feel like I really earned the hard way all of those opportunities to write with true Hall of Famers. I mean, you know, they've written some of my favorite country songs ever. And now they fly down to Texas to come, you know, listen to me BS over a melody that's probably not that good for 48 hours. So I'm very grateful for that.
That's amazing. Have you ever wondered how artists like Treaty Oak Revival, Red Clay Strays, and Aaron Watson maintain the high quality and high demand for their merchandise? CH Lone Star Promo is the answer. Created in Texas to serve Texas artists, and they're currently offering 15% off on all merch orders from musicians. Visit chlonestarpromo.com to get started and tell them Texas Toast sent you.
I was reading the other day that it takes at least $1 million to break an artist. That's a ton of change, and it can feel overwhelming. But with social media leveling the playing field, you just need an effective strategy to release your music. Check out Release Rocket to ensure your single does not die after release day. You've already put time, effort, and tons of money into writing and recording your album. Let the guys at Release Rocket keep your new release alive.
Well, I want to talk about just a few of the tracks on the album. One that's very important that gets to all of us moms, Things I Never Told You.
Yes, that's the only song on the record I didn't write. But it was one that I felt like I could have written. It was the same. I've only cut 2 songs on Universal Records that I didn't write. It was Like a Cowboy and Things I Never Told You. Both of them, I'm very picky with that. I just won't cut an outside song if I don't have one that doesn't hit me the way that song does. And my buddy Taylor Phillips, who's a great songwriter out of Nashville, had texted me one day and he said, "Man, I'd love to have a cut on this record." He's like, "Do you want to write together?" And I was basically done with the record. I had one more day. I was going to go in and cut a couple more. I was going to cut Burn It Down and maybe Too Tight this time. I think I was cutting 2 songs left. And he texted me and I said, "Man, I'm kind of done." I said, "But I don't have an outside song cut on this record." I was like, "But you know, a great song's a great song. Like, do you got anything that nobody's cut that you're just kind of sitting in the vault?" And he sent me some song that was real goofy. I mean, real pop country, just very goofy. And I texted him back. I said, "Send me." That's my agent calling me. He should know I have dream calls. And I texted him back and I said, "Send me a real song." I said, "Send me a country song." And he sent back Things I Never Told You. He'd written it with Monty Criswell and Lynn Hutton. And I listened to it one time and I was like, the line that got me was, I had a Johnny Cash LP, or I had a Playboy stashed in a Johnny Cash LP sleeve in my room. I was like, bam, I'm absolutely cutting that song. So it's kind of funny. People always say, you know, their favorite song of mine is Like a Cowboy, which is the only one that I didn't write, which always kind of makes me laugh. But that is just great songs are great songs, and I'll always cut great songs if someone sends me one.
Well, you have some great songs on the album. Of course, we loved "Handle on You." That's such a big hit for you. And I'm just gonna mention quick, like since I live on the Gulf Coast, when the hurricane names come out, like I always want to see who of my friends got named after hurricanes for this year. I'm still waiting on a Hurricane Helen. That's another good one. Speed makes reference to Conroe, but Burn It Down is big on that, and that's your tour name for this year.
It is. That's been a big song for us. I think it's been our biggest streaming, highest, I don't pay attention to that, but they tell me every now and then how well it's doing, and I guess that one's doing better than a lot of the other ones we've had before. So, and you can tell. I never look at that stuff because I can tell. I've got to go out there and sing it for people every night. I can tell whether it's connecting and it's a hit or not. You can tell instantly. And every night that song is. I look forward to playing it because I know it's going to be one of the biggest moments of the show. And that was another song. I wrote that with the Love Junkies. That's when we were at my house in Nashville, and that song kind of came out of nowhere. I had not. Just it's probably a testament to how good they are. They get my brain working like that. I feel like the pressure. I've got to bring something to the table that's great because they're great. So shout out to the Love Junkies for that. But I don't know. Maybe that song goes number one. I think it's like top 10 or top 12, something like that right now on Billboard. So it'd be nice if it went. We love 4 in a row.
Well, the tour's going good. Everything is going good. I'm excited that you'll have new music for us. And I know we're going to kind of start wrapping this up. But there's one thing that I found was so cool. And a lot of us get this in this area. So Kendra Scott was your babysitter.
She was. I know her pretty well. I hadn't seen her since then. She came to our show. We played the Moody Center last year, or 2022, and she came out with her husband, and I think some of their friends, and she brought Hallie a bunch of jewelry, and she knows I like the gold chains, so she brought me some really cool gold chains, one that I wear all the time. But her, she was from Spring, I think, and I think her and my uncle may have had a little thing back in the day or something, and I think they were probably in their 20s then. So, I think when my parents would go out and they'd have Kendra kind of come over to the house and babysit. So it's kind of funny. I always say that to people, and I think they just, think I'm full of it. And I'm like, well, I don't need to elaborate or anything. And then time will go by and people are like, did you say Kendra Scott was your babysitter? I'm like,
So cool.
She absolutely was. And now she's massive, just killing it. So I love to see all that success for her.
Yes, I love stories like that. That's how our kind of small town Texas stuff kind of intertwines itself. So to wrap things up, I have one last question for you. If you were a cocktail, what would you be, Parker McCollum?
If I was a cocktail,
What would you be?
I'd probably be like a dirty martini or something. A couple of them go a long way. 3 makes you sloppy. So I would probably say that. I don't really drink though. I'm not every now and then I'll kind of go through a phase where I'm like, yeah, it's all right. I'll drink a little bit, but it's not really my thing. I think it's bad for business. Good for songwriting, bad for business.
A true story. Well, I can't tell you how thrilled we are to have you on the podcast and following you along from the beginning to where you are now. Looking forward to what's in the future. So thank you so much, Parker, for joining us.
Thanks, Miss Helen. Appreciate y'all.